In a world full of mystery and adventure, there is a young 11-year-old named Ryoma. He lives in the middle of nowhere all alone, unless you're also considering the 1,000 or so slimes he always has around himself. Yup, it's just him and the slimes, plus the occasional bandits. It's been that way for years. And apparently there are different kinds of these slimes, each have their own special needs, yet also benefits. So he makes sure to take care of them all accordingly. Things are going as usual until one day when Ryoma comes across a few men who have wandered off to his side of the forest. They are all cautious of him. I mean, it's not every day that you find such a young kid in the middle of nowhere. Ryoma is also somewhat wary of them, but he heals their injured friend and even asks them if they'd like to rest a little at his place. Though before they can make their way to Ryoma's home, they are taken off guard by an unpleasant number of green slimes who suddenly appear before them. They are ready to cut the slimes down, but Ryoma intervenes and explains that they are domesticated. A nobleman named Reinhardt is among these men. He realizes that Ryoma is a tamer, and these slimes are his familiars. Apparently, he used to be a tamer as well. So they all tag along with Ryoma to his place in order to take a nice break, but everyone except Reinhardt becomes even more cautious of him when he just opens a portal on a cliff like it's nothing, and they have to walk through it to get to his house. Something about Ryoma's powers feels overwhelming to them, and when he mentions how he also makes potions, they really start overthinking it. Anyways, everyone introduces themselves and the guys explain how their injured friend Hughes was attacked by a bear. When asked about why he lives by himself in this vast forest, Ryoma states that he used to live with his grandparents, who also taught him about magic. But they died 3 years ago, and he's been with the slimes since then. Hearing this, the men let loose because the story makes sense. Plus, when they use a crystal ball to see if he's a criminal, it turns out he's not. His magical powers are monumental though, and he also has high resistance to mental and physical pain. Soon enough, they thank him for his hospitality and leave. However, it only takes a moment for Ryoma to start feeling guilty. Yes, it's the truth that he has been living with the slimes for the past 3 years, but the story about his grandparents was a lie. He isn't even from this world, but I guess you guys could already catch that from the title of this video. That's right, Ryoma here used to be a middle-aged Japanese corporate worker who was always humiliated, tortured, and condemned by everyone around him. Every single day was a living nightmare. He could never catch a break. But despite his muscular build and superior physical strength, the man never broke. He continued persevering and remained kind till the very end. In the end, what took his life wasn't stress or a situation, it was merely a sneeze. However, just like that, he found himself right in front of 3 gods. They all pleasantly greeted him, bestowed upon him magical powers, and then sent him to a fantasy world as an 8-year-old. When he popped up in this fantasy world, he started learning about magic and creatures around him. First, he befriended a slime using his magical skill, and before he knew it, the number of his tame slimes only continued to increase. The encounter with Reinhardt and his men was definitely something unusual for Ryoma, but after they leave, things simply go back to normal. That is until 2 weeks later when they show up once again, this time with more people. Among them, there's Reinhardt's father, his beautiful wife named Elise, and his adorable daughter named Eliaria. All of them are in awe of Ryoma's taming abilities. As it turns out, the Jamil family has been tamers for generations, but even they are surprised by the amazing number of weird yet useful antics his slimes can perform. Elise compliments him and even recommends joining the Tamers Guild. Following this, Ryoma receives a Bulova clock as a gift for healing Hughes, but it looks like they want Ryoma's help for something else as well. Reinhardt's daughter Ilaria wants a slime as her familiar, but she hasn't been able to tame one yet, so if Ryoma can help her, that'll be wonderful. Of course, he's ready to help the adorable lady. She learns about the different types of slimes and decides that she wants a cleaner slime. Believe it or not, the cleaner slime is a new creature, along with the scavenger slime, both of whom came into being thanks to Ryoma. Although she would need to use her own bathwater as bait, but she does exactly that, and catches her first Pokemon, slime. Then they ask Ryoma if he'd like to come to a land called Gimul, which is under Jamil family, and after considering it for a minute, he takes the plunge and the journey to Gimul begins. On the way, he excitedly talks about his abilities. But then their journey is put to a halt because of a landslide that is blocking the way. Looks like they'll have to take another route, which will end up needlessly taking 3 more days. So, they all try to do something about it with their magic, and much to everyone's surprise, Ryoma does his thing and not only saves everyone from the rain, but also clears the path by changing the shape of the rocks in their way. Thanks to him, they arrive at Gimul just in time. As you may expect, Ryoma is excited to visit another city after all this time. He goes to the church to get his status, which is basically the equivalent of one's personal identity. Though suddenly, he warps back to the same white vicinity where he met those gods. The one who created the slime appreciates Ryoma for bringing 2 new kinds of slimes into existence, while the goddess explains that the ancestors of Jamil's family actually came from Earth as well. One was an animal lover, the other was an otaku. After his brief visit, Ryoma comes back to his senses in the church. The next course of action for him is now joining a guild, otherwise he'll be the odd one out with all his magic prowess. Just like that, they head to the Tamer's Guild, but since slimes don't really look all that impressive from a general standpoint, he realizes that he can only go so far in the Tamer's Guild. And so they then head to the Warrior's Guild to see if he can get into that. The guildmaster puts him to test, but Ryoma clears it with flying colors. Even his warrior traits are a sight to behold. Still though, he has the lowest rank called G. There is a long road ahead for him. As for his first job, it looks like he'll be cleaning the house of a cat girl. Not the kind of job you'd expect of a warrior, but who am I to judge, right guys? Plus, Ryoma has this one in the bag. His slimes clean her house and even renovate it. Talk about over-delivering. She also appreciates what he did and gives him a nice little reward. Moving on, it looks like Ryoma's next job has something to do with cleaning as well. That's right, boys. The real warrior is the one who keeps our society clean. And so, Ryoma is now asked to do something about the contaminated toilets. The Jamil family wasn't really psyched to have their precious guest to do it, but Ryoma thinks otherwise. He asks for a few extra pairs of hands who tell everyone to hold it in, while he himself goes inside all alone and cleans the living fumes out of the toilets. So much so that you can probably lick them and still stay fine. Once the job is done, Ryoma recalls his sweet mother who always stayed up late all night because she looked forward to seeing her son return home. She eventually died, and so from that point onward, there was no one who could even welcome him. However, when he returns to the Jamil family and they welcome him, his heart couldn't take it. Little Ryoma starts shedding tears of happiness right there and then. Now, Eliaria has been getting impressed by Ryoma's abilities again and again. She recalls how he advised her that playing around with magic is the way to learn, but looks like she wants to know how to play. This leads to a full-scale training session when Ryoma asks the men to also teach him offensive skills. In fact, the butler goes ahead and teaches him advanced teleportation and storage magic. It was a day well spent. The next day, they all visit a mine where Eliaria can test her abilities against monsters. This was a good opportunity for Ryoma as well, considering how he can try using his attack skills. During all of this, Eliaria comes across a rather rare metal slime. She catches it and then offers it to Ryoma as a present. Ryoma is grateful, but you bet he was also going to help the Jamil family in some way. He notices that they can use magic to extract more iron that is left in the soil and pleases the Duke with his discovery. Following this, he is introduced to a trader named Serge Morgan, who is more than happy to trade Ryoma's new iron bars that he has created from extracted iron. Suddenly, the big bucks start rolling in, but he wants to stay anonymous and not attract unnecessary attention, especially since he can also use actual alchemy that these people have only heard about in stories. Meanwhile, it looks like the cruel guys who had been destroying the toilet are finally arrested. This causes everyone to breathe a sigh of relief. However, while the toilet may finally be a safe zone from now on, they still need to properly clear out the mines if they want to get more iron. Ryoma and a few other adventurers from the Adventurers Guild are given the task of invading the mines and defeating all the monsters. Everything is going smoothly, but then they come across a disgusting number of goblins inside their nest. Fortunately, the goblins here aren't as despicable as they are in Goblin Slayer, and so everyone succeeds in ravaging them all thanks to their combined effort. Ryoma and his slimes contribute heavily to this attack. This gives Ryoma plenty of confidence, especially when one of the companions state how he can make a fortune by providing a cleaning service using his slimes. When the mine is all cleared out and they all return back, Ryoma expresses his sincere desire to live independently. He can't just keep cashing in on the Jamil's family's hospitality after all. He also makes sure to express his gratitude for all they have done for him. The Jamil family understands his wishes, but they want him to promise that he'll always keep in touch. Elaria further stresses that he must visit them regularly, but since they are still in this city for the time being, Ryoma decides to share his business idea with them. How he wants to open a laundry shop, and looks like the entire Jamil household wants to help. He goes to the Morgan Trading Company together with Ilaria the next day for some advice and all. Good man Morgan is pleased with the abilities of his slimes. He then recommends joining the Merchants Guild because that'll definitely make things easier for Ryoma. Ryoma does just that. He joins the Merchants Guild, gets himself a plot of land, and builds something out of nothing together with everyone. Once the construction is done, he goes to the church to see if he can warp to that white place and meet the gods once again, but only one of them is there. The other two are having a blast back on Earth. However, the god who was still present tells Ryoma that even though he will keep the memories of his previous life, his mental and emotional maturity will eventually regress in order to become one with his body. Anyways, Ryoma's laundry shop is up and running. It's called Bamboo Forest Laundry Shop. The Merchants Guild sends him a pair of siblings named Carla and Callum. They are immediately taken off guard by the exceptional manner in which the place operates. Not to mention, the one running it is just an 11-year-old. Subsequently, Ryoma and everyone else are in the middle of prepping for a feast so that everyone can celebrate the grand opening. Once he's done with the preparation, Goodman Morgan introduces the siblings to Ryoma as his new employees. He is excited to have them work for him and immediately shows them around, although the duo is rather too calm and composed, which makes him wonder if he's even doing a good job at all. Be that as it may, everyone is excited for the party. It happens, and as expected, they all have a blast. Ryoma expresses his genuine thanks to everyone who helped him out. Thanks to their help, this grand opening was a success, though those two siblings still have their poker face on. Ryoma gets concerned and talks to them about it, but as it turns out, that's just how they usually are. They do admire him and are also quite excited to work with him. Even though it may not seem that way, the next day, the shop opens. Of course, since Ryoma has built quite a reputation, there are a lot of people who are curious about his new shop. He leaves it in the hands of the siblings and then heads to the Adventurers Guild together with Eliaria. When he returns back to the shop, he is taken aback by the extraordinary line that has formed in his shop. Looks like everyone and their dogs want their clothes cleaned by his slimes. Yup, business is definitely booming, and so it's time for Ryoma to create more jobs. The Merchant Guild tries to look for people who can work for Ryoma, but most of them get up and leave once they realize that their boss is going to be an 11-year-old. Most of them except Faye and Li Ling. Though apparently they are both carrying weapons, which makes Ryoma get a little cautious, but when Faye explains that they are just former assassins, Ryoma gives them the green light to work for him. He also heals Faye's injured leg because a man should always take good care of his employees. The next day, Ryoma meets up with Eliaria and the two of them talk about the past few days, all the adventures they've been doing, and during the conversation, Ryoma realizes that he should also hire someone who can take care of his employees, like a cook. He hires Miss Selma as the cook and also hires two others, namely Maria and Jane, because the business has been blooming even more so than before. In fact, the guildmaster of the Merchants Guild advises him that he should open another branch in a different town. Although Ryoma thinks that it's still rather too early, but he enjoys the idea of eventually branching out. The Jamil family is also delighted by all the progress he has been making. Anyways, now that the staff were taking care of his business, he decides to take up a new position at the Adventurer Guild. Later, Goodman Morgan invites Ryoma for a new business opportunity. It isn't anything major, but he wants the little guy to prepare a hefty amount of waterproof clothing because the seasonal Grell frog hunt is coming up. Ryoma agrees to the request and then heads to the mines to get started because it's all peaceful and quiet there. Illyria observes as Ryoma feeds some iron to a slime, who then in turn starts evolving into an iron slime. Seriously, these slimes are just like the Eevee Pokemon. While he is doing his work, Illyria is practicing her violin. Later, she asks him if he can create a little doll-like statue of her, and he is easily able to do that. The statue comes out so good that he goes ahead and makes the statues of the other members of the Jamil family as well, including himself. Looks like Illyria is soon going to leave the city for her education, and so these statues will serve as a good memento whenever she gets a little bit lonely. Back at the Bamboo Forest laundry shop, the sales and the profits have been increasing by leaps and bounds, but that's nothing unusual. What's unusual is how Ryoma literally forgot about giving his precious employees a nice holiday break. They have been working so hard, it's only right that he rewards them accordingly. Which is why when he gives them a holiday, everyone is overjoyed. Later he learns that the adventure party next town over somehow captured an unusual slime. He also learns that the party wasn't able to sell the slime at the Tamers Guild. This was good news because now he can just catch up to them and purchase it himself. His encounter with them is awkward at first, but their leader named Shin decides to show him the slime after stating how the Tamers Guild thinks it's useless. They then bring a jar with a red slime inside. Ryoma is intrigued. He pays 2 gold coins and immediately gets it for himself. Shin and the others are surprised because just like that, they earned 2 gold coins. Apparently, it's really tough out there in the real world when you don't have any money. Realizing this, Ryoma suggests they try to hunt for some Grell frogs when it is finally in season and also mentions his shop, stating that they can come visit anytime. He then takes the slime to a safe place and realizes that it's the bloody slime. Quite powerful one at that. The slime easily rids a rat monster of all of its blood. Afterwards, Illyria invites him to join her for some taming magic lessons, and as you can guess, he accepts her invitation. The training is quite intensive. Both Ryoma and Illyria learn a ton of stuff. Ryoma even tames something that isn't a slime. It's a bird, and as Elise later questions him about it, it turns out that he also has an affinity with birds. For the next few days, the magic training continues and Ryoma also keeps making progress on the waterproof cloth in his free time. The Grell Frog's outbreak is only around 2 to 4 days away. His adventurer friends get the waterproof clothing from Serge Morgan's store. Subsequently, Illyria mentions how she is planning on taming some lemur birds who'll be appearing at the same place as the Grell Frogs. The Jamil family will also be visiting that lake. Later at night, Ryoma enjoys playing some guitar in the company of his dear slimes. He wants to catch the attention of some lemur birds if he can, in order to tame them. Because why not? Seems like music is instrumental to taming lemur birds. He also realizes that Illyria will be leaving for her education in the near future. They don't have much time left to spend together. Just like that, the day of the hunt is already here. Ryoma and Illyria are on their way together with the Jamil family. Halfway through the journey, they also come across Shin and his party. Seeing them, Ryoma excuses himself to go and greet them. Looks like Shin and the others are planning on hunting a good amount of Grell frogs and then going to his bamboo forest shop in order to get their clothes cleaned. Yup, everyone's in high spirits. Later, when the lemur birds start flying, a tamer fails to tame them. Even when he tries to go on the offensive, the birds turn out to be much tougher. Ryoma and an adventurer named Camille safeguard the tamer using their earth wall. One of the birds lets out a strange noise, which was effective against everyone else but ineffective when it comes to Ryoma. He finds the bird and helps it get together with its companions. When Reinhardt realizes that Ryoma wasn't affected by that noise, he reveals how it was from a nightmare lemur bird. the kind who can not only use wind magic but also dark magic. Ryoma wonders if it's because of his high mental tolerance that he could easily bear the noise, although there is no way to confirm his deduction. As for Eliaria, even though the birds have flown away, she wants to stay here and wait for their return. Time continues to pass and it's already dusk. The guys at the bamboo forest laundry shop are done for the day, and so they close the shop. Meanwhile, Ryoma and the others continue to search for lemur birds together with Eliaria. At one instant, she states how the two of them are soon going to go their separate ways. But hearing this, Ryoma just doesn't know how to respond at the moment. He decides to tell her it's not like they're never going to meet again, but her mother Elise beats him to it and states the response in his head. Eliaria gets a little flustered, even more so when Hughes tells them both to just go ahead and kiss. Hughes gets smacked instead though. Fortunately, before the awkwardness makes things more difficult, the lemur birds return, including the nightmare lemur bird. Ryoma wonders if he should stay back considering how the nightmare lemur bird seems to be rather afraid of him. But she tells him to stay as she steps up and starts playing her violin. The sound of her music begins to attract more of them. It's magical. Ryoma is delighted. He also starts playing his guitar. Then, when the two of them are done taming their birds, it is revealed that Eliaria has gotten her hands on a bird even rarer than the nightmare lemur bird. We're talking about Articuno, I mean phantom lemur bird. A banquet takes place to celebrate Eliaria's successful taming. Everyone, including the tamed monsters, is present at the scene. Later, Ryoma and Eliaria are in his room together with all those slimes. She gives him her magical ruby necklace, which she had received from her mother back when she was 10. Ryoma is hesitant to accept it, but she states that he's simply holding on to it until she is back. He understands, and in return, he presents her with a cleaner and a scavenger slime. Of course, she accepts as well. Just like that, it's finally time for the long-awaited farewell. Eliaria will be going to study while Jamil's family is heading back to their actual home. Ryoma promises that he'll keep in touch with them. He'll write Eliaria letters and also visit her in 3 years when she gets a break from her education. Though for now, what he wants to do next is build a home for himself in the mines. That's right, this story has only just begun. The next season will be coming out in January, guys, so y'all better be looking forward to it. As for now, what did you think about this anime? Share your thoughts in the comment section down below. And don't forget to give that like button some life. Might as well tickle that red subscribe button as well. Well then, I'll see y'all on my next video.